各位朋友大家晚上好啊。今天呢，我们就是说欢迎各位参加我们 EMCC 中国与 Mentoring 联合主办的100场专业导师讲座。今天是我们做的第12场。那么今天呢，我们有来自于法国的 Michel Moral 先生给大家带来一个主题为领导者需要日益更新，领导的需求需要日益更新，我们该如何去满足它？所以这是我们要去今天的主题。那么这个主题呢，在这个主题背后呢，我们是想做呢，我们是想通过邀请大量的全球在导师、教练和督导领域这些专家，然后呢，他们跟我们去分享整个在导师技术领域、在督导领域、在和教练领域的他们这些最新的一些实践和研究，也给到咱们中国的很多朋友。那么这也是我们在把欧洲、把海外这套比较全新的这套导师技术理念呢引到中国来的一部分。OK， 那在我们今天下午呢，在今天呢这个讲座之前呢，我们来先认识一下那个米肖先生。那米肖呢，他是拥有心理学的硕士和临床心理学的博士，他已经出版了11本关于教练、督导和团队教练以及组织教练这方面的书籍。他目前呢是我们欧洲导师教练协会认证的督导 ，OK， 也担任我们督导的培训师啊，督导培训师在欧洲导师教练协会我们有教练。
I cannot hear you. 有声音吗？
听见吗？听见 ？OK， 好。所以米肖先生他也是我们EMCC 全球督导工作小组的成员啊，他参与了大量的督导领域的研究。OK， 那么本次讲座呢是由欧洲导师教练协会、Mentoring 导师学院、小鹅通以及正道联合主办啊。那么今天的主办单位是这样的：欧洲导师教练协会呢，它的全称叫 European Mentoring and Coaching Council， 中文叫做欧洲导师教练协会，简称 EMCC。它是成立于1992年。总部在比利时布鲁塞尔的，专门为导师、教练、督导提供国际资格认证的非营利性组织。那么，截止到2021年12月份，欧洲导师教练协会已经在全球它的会员已经遍布全球140个国家，它所认证过的会员已经有超过5万个。那么他目前在67个国家都有他自己的运营机构啊。OK， 那么记者他是一个非营利性的行业协会。保持你的摄像头的开启，除非你说你在路上或者有这个实在不方便，那是另外一回事。如果有可能的话，尽量保持摄像头的开启，这样是对的老师一份尊重。那第三呢，如果你在我们后面的讨论过程中，如果要用到是中文，不要用长篇大论啊，不要你说一下讲个5分钟、10分钟、20分钟，不要这样讲，我们没那么多时间，你可能讲的比较简单一点，然后呢， 句子讲的比较简单，同时留个2-3分钟呢，就是2到3句话这个一停顿，让我们的翻译来帮助你就翻译成英文给到我们的演讲嘉宾，好吧？那么会后呢，我们会有个调研问卷给到大家，希望大家呢能够帮助我们填写调研问卷，也是帮助我们呢在这块做得更好。Okay, now I over to Michel. Thank you, Michel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do today is to show you a few slides about what I'm going to talk about. And after that, we are going to have a question and answer session so that you understand what I try to tell you today. So let me share my presentation. Just give me a second.
Sorry, Michel. Sorry, something is wrong with my internet just now, and I just get online. Could you please restart, and I will do the translation.
I restart what? Excuse me.
Yes, something is wrong with my internet. I just got offline, and now I get online, and I missed something you said.
Okay, so what I said is that I'm going to show a few slides and then have a question and answer session. Okay, so I'm just a few words about my experience, and you can have a look at the chart. I was a manager until 2003, managers and executive, and since 2003, I've been working as a coach and coach supervisor. Okay. I like writing, and I have published a lot of books in French. And this is only a part of what I have published on management and coaching. And I continue to write. I like that very much, in fact. Okay. Now, what is the question that we are going to address today? And in order to outline the question, I'm going to tell you an anecdote, a short story. I coach a leader, a guy who is leading a company with about 30,000 employees. So this is his third coaching. He told me at the very beginning of our relationship something like, I really liked the first two coaches, but now I'm getting used to the methods used in coaching. And so he told me, I'm getting used to coaching and what coaches are doing. So please amaze me. That's what he's asking me. It's be creative, do something different than my previous two coaches. So you see on this slide, I mean, this is coaching. Part of coaching is executive coaching, and new needs in executive coaching are emerging. So mentors say that, we can address these new needs. Supervisors, coach supervisors say, we can address these new needs. And another set of professionals are looking for a third direction, so something very new. So this is a very rapid evolution of the market in the Western countries. And so the question is, what are these new needs and how are we going to address that emergence? So a study was done in 2020 on 8 international leaders. It was done by these 3, in fact, coach supervisors. And the result of the study is summarized here. So new needs are on the left part. There are listed the needs for executives, modern leaders. And on the right part, what practitioners should know and do to serve the new needs. So this study is very marked by the theoretical orientations of the authors. And so some additional research has been done since 2020, excuse me. So I'm going to show you a summary of this new research. And so this is a summary of where we are about the new needs of the leaders, at least in the Western world. So I let you, I give you a few seconds to just look at the content of the chat. And so now the question is, how are we going to serve these needs? I mean, and so we have three tools or three professions, so coaches, mentors, and coach supervisors. So let's go a bit deeper in each of these. So first of all, the market is trying to cope with these new needs, and a number of methodologies are proposed. It's not all clear about what they are, and they have different names. So it's a bit of a mess on the market with this question of the new needs for leaders. In France, I mean, the terminology that is used is executive supervision, which is not at all accepted in countries like the USA. In UK, I mean, the executive reflection is what is proposed to name the new approaches. Recently, I attended a webinar where a coach from Malaysia was proposing systemic executive reflection in supervision with some methodologies. Okay, so it appears when we look at the detail of these approaches that it's a combination of coaching, mentoring, and coach supervision. So it's like a cocktail. So it's like a cocktail with three liqueurs with different proportions of each one, of each liqueur. It's like a cocktail like with whiskey, vodka, and Coca-Cola, and a different mix. So the first component is coach supervision. And coach supervision provides these different elements. The objective of coach supervision is to improve the professionalism of coaches and mentors. Some elements, especially reflection, I mean, the top part, this one in orange, reflect on the deep motivations, can be used to help executives. And also, all the reflection around ethics can be used also. So mentoring, this is a definition of mentoring, and probably, I mean, and this is what mentoring is doing. It's a learning relationship. It implies that the person who is helping the executive has some experience of being an executive, being a leader. The third component is coaching. And this is a definition of coaching, which is a bit more general than the one used by ICF or EMCC. And some coaches, in order to serve the emerging needs of executive, are proposing what they call coaching plus, in red at the bottom. And coaching plus is in fact ordinary coaching, but including some more systemic and organizational awareness. Okay, so you see, these are the three components: coach, supervision, mentoring, coaching. The new needs of modern leaders have to be served by these three elements, these three helping methodologies. And so the question is how to build something which is flexible enough to serve the needs of all modern leaders on all the world. And for instance, what I do with my clients is to reflect on themselves, their relationships with people, their relationship with groups, for instance, their leadership team, and also reflect on their relationship with the corporate culture of their company and the corporate cultures of other companies, like their clients or their providers. So have a reflection on the successive layers of their environment. And this is what I call an onion approach, onion. And still my colleagues who are doing the same kind of approach, they insist on some layers and more than others. And so the general methodology is not yet defined. And we, as professionals of helping professions, are still reflecting on how to proceed, have a kind of general approach of these new needs. But at the same time, these new needs evolve because the world is changing very, very quickly due to a number of factors. And as you know, the role of artificial intelligence is increasing quickly.
Excuse me?
The role of AI, artificial intelligence, the role is growing quickly. And artificial intelligence has not yet been included in these approaches. I have finished with the conceptual approach, and so now if you have questions, we can have an open discussion about this content.
Catherine has a question. Could you say an example about the competencies and tools that are required to address the needs of leaders?
Okay, what they want is to be able to reflect on their situation and what they are doing and how they will build their future. So the tools I'm using personally on the intrapersonal aspect of it, I use the cognitivist approach, and so this is for intrapersonal. For interpersonal aspects, I use some theories of relational psychology. I also use all systemic approaches: first system theory, second system theory, and complexity theory. And on the cultural aspect, I use a tool called the Barrett values that maybe you know. And also I am I am an interculturalist. I have published a book about regional cultures. So these are the tools I am using.
May I confirm that is the tools you have used? They are cognitive approach, interpersonal approach, systematic approach in coaching, and you have published a book about organizational coaching, right?
Yes, yeah, correct. And also I use different approaches of collective intelligence. And well, in fact, I mean, it's kind of very large, very wide spectrum of tools and theories that I have to use in order to be able to cope with the request of these clients. But I am lucky because I combine, I was trained as an engineer in the past, and then during my life, I gained, I now hold a doctorate in psychology. So the combination of the two is very useful for approaching the new needs of leaders. And okay, any other question?
还有问题吗？Michelle also has a question.
Yeah, Doctor, this is Michelle. I have a question. Just now you mentioned you guide during your coaching session, you guide the leader to reflect relationship on the certain levels. And I'm very curious to know anything else you would like to guide them to reflect on. For example, emotion, because that's the hard part to get, especially for the senior leader to open up. How do you make it happen?
When I reflect on the let's take one after the other. There is, in my approach, there is an intrapersonal work to be done. And especially I work on their motivation and the relationship between their motivation and their emotional life. I mean, it's the key question is why? Why? I mean, why in one word and also because we have the same word in French. I mean, it's why and for what. I mean, what's your purpose, and which is oriented future, and why, which is oriented past. And so the past is driving the future, and there is a very emotional aspect in there because the past, you know, it's childhood, things like that. It's very, very strong emotions are linked to the past. And of course, the future is, I mean, the future is getting rid of some emotions, and of course, and also realizing certain dreams. And this is for the intrapersonal part. Also, interpersonal is driven by past relationships which have been good or less good. And so the past relationships are reactualized in the present relationship. And so there is a reflection on how to have only good relationships. I mean, to have only, or not only good relationships, but possible relationships. But if I go back to the example at the beginning with my current client who has already experienced 2 coachings, I mean, during the 2 coachings before me, I mean, he had the opportunity to work deeply on himself and also on his relationship. So now what I do with that client is now we go into a more systemic and cultural concerns that he has. And most of what we work on currently are reflecting about complexity and reflecting about especially politics. And so, I mean, it's like it's going from the inside to the outside and the system and the world. And we also reflect on how to deal with uncertainty. So sometimes our discussions can look quite philosophical, you know, but as there is an executive is typically a person who has an extremely big leverage on things. I mean, in fact, any word of an executive has an influence on the life of many families. So it's important that to increase the awareness of executives so that they know, they understand what they do, why they do that at that moment, so that they have a systemic awareness, a relationship awareness. So it's all about increasing the awareness. And so it's where supervision, it's where supervisors have a word to say, because supervision training is about awareness. In fact, what we try to do when we train supervisors is increase their awareness. So as supervisors have more awareness, they can also transmit this awareness to leaders. So you see how it combines. Other questions? I have a question, which is all that a surprise for you, or are you already familiar with what I was talking about? You're on mute.
是全新的吗？要 mute， OK， open。我们也大家把自己的个麦克风打开啊，每个人麦克风打开。
No, from my side, I would say all the concept I know. That's just a new one. Is a coaching plus. That's additional one today. That's good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But the fact, is that it's not only coaching plus. It's the fact that we have to merge coaching plus mentoring and supervision, and so have some skills on each one of the three.
Excuse me, could you explain that more?
So the message is that in this approach, we professionals have to use the elements of the three professions. Coaching with coaching plus, mentoring, and supervision. And combine these to cope with the needs.
Michel, this is I forgot another question. I would say contracting. When we combine all these skills together, do we have to get the permission with the client at the very beginning? Let's say I'm going to combine some techniques, because when you do the pure coaching, you are curious, you don't know, you cannot tell. But when you do pure mentoring, you inspire, but you can tell your expertise part. And the supervision is more like the provide a hold space for people to, or say safe place for people to reflect. So basically, there are commonalities, but still have the difference. When we really start a dialogue, I would like to invite your opinion on this.
Yeah, you are exactly. point your finger on exactly the problem, the concern, is that contracting of that kind of activity is quite difficult because it's very difficult to work on an objective. It's impossible to work on success indicators like in coaching. So it's more like supervision, but it's not supervision because it's not just about improving the professionalism. It's deeper than that, and so this is we are working currently on trying to define a way to have clear contracts, because at the end of the day we need clear contracts because our clients need to know what they buy.
True.
This is the issue. In fact, I mean we have to be able to explain what we are going to do, and it's a real issue sometimes. But practically, what we do is co-reflection. You know, it's sitting together and reflect on their key issues. I mean, I can define that like this. So I compare that to an open discussion in an English club in front of a fire, sitting on leather armchairs and having a very, very good whiskey on the table. You see, it's like, it's not a friendly discussion, it's a very in-depth discussion. But the problem is that the executive doesn't know at the beginning what is his need. I mean, other than reflect.
Yeah. Thank you. This is cool. Thank you very much.
And we work very hard on that contracting question because, of course, we are coaches, we are supervisors, and we have a great respect for a clear contract. I mean, I'm fully with that. Yes. Except that it's a difficult challenge, you know, to contract on that. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm back. Maybe you know what's called the DILS metaphor or the taxi metaphor. I'm going to tell you this metaphor. So let's suppose you are a taxi driver waiting for a client. Then a client arrives and say, well, drive me somewhere where it's nice. You know, and you are in that position. I mean, the request is very unclear. And of course, the coach would say, well, if you don't give me a precise address, I cannot do my job. So this is what a coach would say. A consultant would say, well, I'm going to drive you someplace in Shanghai where there is a nice view. This is what that the consultant would say, and so on. You know, so I mean, this is the challenge. You know, I mean, is that the request at the very beginning is unclear, but as the executive has a big power and has any of his thought or word of what he's doing has a big impact on thousands of families. We have really to think on how to help them to increase their awareness, to increase their capacity, their reflecting capacity. You know, when I was myself an executive, I mean, I was surprised because, you know, I did presentation at the very top of IBM, which was the company where I was working. And, you know, I mean, there was some slides at the end. There was a bullet like marketing focus. I mean, just 2 words. But marketing focus means, in fact, these 2 words mean that we are going to invest $200 million on advertising campaigns, move people from a country to another. I mean, you see, I mean, there is a huge amplification at an executive level, and they really need to have some way to reflect on what they do and what they plan to do, what they intend to do. And I'm fully with you, contracting on that is a real big issue.
Thank you. It's helpful. Very helpful.
Fisher, maybe you have some. How could the mentors be?
Okay, great. So maybe in the end, Michel, I will ask you one question for this. How do you think the trend in the corporate life side, we say the new leaders, they are looking for some mentoring service to replicate their expertise to the young generations?
Well, I mean, there is a question from Sunshine Zoo, and so we have 2 questions. First, I'm going to answer the question on the chat, maybe, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, great.
Yeah. So, how could the mentors be better prepared for the new needs? I think that mentors have to really reflect about these new needs and themselves reflect on how they are going to cope with that. Probably it's, I mean, it's all around awareness, self-awareness, relationship awareness, systemic awareness. And I don't know how the mentors are prepared to be more aware of who they are, what they do, how they relate. Are they aware of how's the environment? So I train supervisors, and we spend a lot of time to increase the awareness of supervisors. Probably the mentors should also spend some time on increasing their awareness. And now, Fisher, can you repeat your question?
Yeah. So, Michel, my question is, from your experience, how do you see the corporate executives or very senior, the need for them to transmit their knowledge to the young generation through mentoring? How do you think this kind of trend in the corporate life?
Oh, a kind of transmission from elder down to young generations. Yeah. So
yes.
How I see that, I mean, I think that probably more co-reflection should be set. I mean, co-reflection would be a senior executive who is young, high potential people, and spend some time reflecting about what is important. I mean, what's and co-reflection with reaction from the young, and also the vision of the old, senior executive. Because what I see is that, and I am myself like that, I mean, senior executives have been trained as executive without any consideration for the climate issue, for the pollution issue, things like that. While young people are very, very concerned. And when I reflect on that, in fact, I have to admit that I say, well, I'm not concerned because in 10 years, probably I will die or maybe earlier. And so I don't care. I mean, I care for my children and my grandchildren, but I don't care that much. But young people, I mean, this is their future. I mean, their future is that they are at risk to live in a real mess, you know. And so in corporations, I think that some co-reflections should occur from time to time. Otherwise, I mean, the senior executives are in their ivory tower and there is miscommunication.
Okay, thank you, Michel. Yeah.
So are we are at the end? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so 那行，因为今天的时间关系呢，我们今天呢就到此。So thank you very much, Michel, for your wonderful sharing for our people here in China. Okay, thank you very much. So hopefully we will see you again in the near future for Chinese audience. Thank you, Michel.
Okay, thanks a lot. It was a nice moment for me. You have to know that I live with a Chinese person, so my partner in life is Chinese, and so I'm used to hear Chinese words. I mean, but I don't speak Chinese.
谢谢你，谢谢。Okay. So
see you.
See you. Thank you, Michel. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
OK， 那个各位说，刚刚呢，就是说米歇尔说了，他说他那个我们今天呢，因为时间关系先到此，然后呢，后面呢，就是说我们就找机会可能再见。然后他当然还提到一点说，他呢就是他的女朋友呢是一个中国人，所以呢，尽管他们可能还不一定还没结婚，但他女朋友是个中国人，他也是懂很多中国的文化，好吧？就也是很有缘的，他也很乐意跟很多中国人打交道。谢谢。OK， Thank you, Michel. OK， 那行，我们今天的就是说这个项目呢先到此。